So there's the jump and movement in midair, and then walking and jumping. There we go. So this is. Welcome back to Arcade. I am Super Tommy, and in this video, we're going to take our penguin character and the movements, walk, jump, idle, and put it into a state machine. Now, in the last video, we created our penguin character, set up our tile map world, added Matter.js physics so that our penguin walks on our world. So it kind of looks like this. Got our penguin here, is walking on our world. We can jump some platforms. So what we're going to do is use a state machine this time. Now, we went over creating a state machine in TypeScript a few weeks ago. Look for this state machine in TypeScript video at the Arcade YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/arcadehq. Now, we're going to take that class and use it in our project here. So we're not going to go over creating that class. Go check out that video to see how we actually made that class. So we already added that to our project here. State machine. Now let me actually make this smaller. I'll move over here. That can be smaller too. Bring up, have it on a separate screen there. Let me just bring up the DevTools. Okay, so we see any errors if we get it. Okay, so here's our state machine. Our state machine class that we took from our state machine video, state machine in TypeScript video. So we just copied that class from that video into a state machine folder in our source folder here. So what we're going to do, let's go to game. We want to take all our penguin logic, so like this movement here for walking, going to idle, doing a jump, and when we use our state machine, we're not going to need to use this is touching ground flag that you see here in this class. We can do it slightly better. So let's start. Let's make a new file. We're going to call it player controller. Now this player controller is going to take our player and then create a state machine in it, and then just going to handle all that logic together. So let's go export default class player controller. Here we're going to constructor. We're going to take in our player, which is the sprite. So let's just import phaser from phaser. Sprite phaser dot physics dot matter dot sprite. That's our penguin, and we'll just start with that. Private sprite, the same typing here, and we're going to go list that sprite. Sprite. So now sprite is going to be a penguin. We're using the more generic term sprite here in case we use a different character, right? You could have some other winter animal, seal or something. Okay, let's collapse this. So, okay, now we need to make a state machine. So let's go here, another class property. It's going to be state machine. Now VS Code is going to auto import that. And this may work for you, the tilde, if you're using our phaser 3 parcel TypeScript template. But if not, you can just do relative paths. So we've got our state machine here. Let's do this dot state machine, new state machine. Now in our state machine, we pass in the context so that when we add states and give it functions or methods, it'll have the right context. So just check out that state machine in TypeScript video to learn more about why we're doing this. And we're going to give it an ID, just call it player. Great. So let's just set up some states here. So we're going to do add state, add an idle state. We know we have that. And let's add a walk state. We know we have that. And then let's set our initial starting state to idle. All right. What we can also do in here is actually make our players' animations in here. And in Phaser 3.50, we don't have to make global animations. So that's what we did in the last video. We'll come back here to game. We have this create penguin animations. And we're adding these animations to the global animation manager, which is fine too. You can still do that in Phaser 3.50. But you have another option of making animations that are tied directly to the sprite using it. Now, in this case, there's really no case I can think of where another sprite would want to use our penguin animation, only our penguin's going to. But for things like explosions, you may want to share that, and that would make sense to leave in the global animation manager. So let's actually just take this method here, move it into our player controller. Here over here. And we're just going to call this create animations. And now our sprite has an animation state on it, which is the new phaser.animations.animations state, which has a create just like the old global or the global animation manager. And so now this will make an animation only on our sprite. So let's do that for the other one. And the generate frame names, there's also a generate frame names on the sprite's animation state. So all the properties are all the same. So that's good. So let's go here and let's actually just make our animations right after we get our sprite. So that's good. That's good. So idle, give it the on enter. So for a state machine, just to briefly summarize here, we talked about it in the state machine inception video, but each state in a state machine has an enter, update, and exit phase. And it'll go through each one of those phases. It starts in on enter, and then it'll stay in update until you go to a new state. And when you go to a new state, it calls on exit. So here's on enter. So we're going to do idle on enter. Now let's make this idle on enter. So private idle on enter. We're just going to make it as a method on this class. We have that. Just make better, what do you call it? Organization formatting. It's called formatting. Okay, so this is on enter. So now we know when we go to the enter state, we want to go to the enter the idle. When we go to the idle state, we want to go to the idle animation. So this sprite.anims.play, or just this.sprite.play, and it's going to be player idle. Player idle. So this.sprite.play, player idle. So that's going to switch to the idle animation, and that'll happen right here when we do set state to idle. So that's good. So now let's actually use it if we can. So we don't need this anymore. Let's delete this and update. So this, delete this. In game, let's come up here. We're going to make a player controller. Player controller. And this will also be question mark because it may be undefined. And let's see. So when we come here, we make our penguin. We can't set that animation yet because we don't have it. Go this not player controller, new player controller. We're going to give it our penguin. That's good. Okay. And let's see. So we do need the update because our state machine. So now that still works, and it started at idle. So that's good. So things are working, right? There's no errors. Now our state machine has this update method that needs to be called, which is over here. Give it a DT. So which means our player controller needs an update as well. So this state machine update DT. Now we're going to get that DT from games. So here update time, first parameter argument, and then we have delta time DT in the scenes update method. And so let's actually, for now, let's comment this out. Instead, we're going to do is if not player controller, we're going to do nothing. We're going to move all this logic into the player controller. So this dot player controller, that update, we're going to pass in DT. So now the player controller gets an update, which then tells the state machine to update. So now everything has what it needs. Okay, so you see this log here change from no state to idle. So that's from here. When we do set state, we're going from starting no state to the idle state, and we're in this idle animation, which is just this one frame. Now, let's do walk. So again, on enter, let's just call this dot walk on enter. And then we do want an on update. This dot walk, let's call it walk on update. All right. Let's put it up here. Private walk on enter. And sure. Private walk on update. So once we enter the walk animation, we want to do sprite dot play, and it's player walk, right? Let's just come check here. Player walk, excellent. Then walk update is going to actually be largely this. It's mostly this. So let's just take that. We don't need this anymore. This was the old update logic that we had. Let's come in here, put it on this update. Okay, so we need cursors, so that's passing cursors into our constructor here. Cursors, phaser.types, .input, .keyboard, cursor keys, and private cursors, which is the same type. Let's just copy and paste this typing. Cursors, okay. Let me show you a quick trick. If you don't like typing this stuff out constantly, look. So if you know you're going to use this type a bunch of times, you can just do this in TypeScript. Cursor keys, not const. Type, and then you can just basically replace this long namespace type with this much shorter one, and there we go. That's handy if you know you're using this a lot, and you can just make your own shortened version of the type up at the top, and then use it everywhere, and it'll still work. So it knows it's a phaser.types.input.keyboard.cursor keys. Okay, back to update here. Now we have our cursor. We'll have to pass it into game. Right here is going to error, right? Because we need to give it our cursors. This dot cursors. And back here in the player controller, it's this dot sprite instead of this dot penguin. So let's just take every penguin. So I'm pressing Command D once I've highlighted the penguin text in VS Code. It's a little shortcut to multi-select and edit. All right, so we're going to flip the X on the sprite, set the velocity. We don't need to do this anymore, so we only do it one time now up here on the enter. Enter gets called one time when you enter the state and only one time. So we don't actually need to do this, and the ignore playing it true, the second parameter, ignore if playing. We don't need to do that anymore. And let's see. And now, okay, if we're not doing that, okay. That should be fine, but instead of playing the animation, what we're going to do is this dot StateMachine set state idle. We're going to go to the idle state. And now for jump, we don't need this. It's touching ground. And what we're going to do, instead of setting the velocity here, because we're in the walk state, let's just make a private jump on enter. So we're going to make a new jump state, and we're going to have a jump enter phase. And then what we're going to want to do is StateMachine.setStateJump. Now we haven't created this jump state yet. We're going to do that, but basically instead of setting the jump logic in the walk state, which doesn't really make that much sense, we're going to make a new state called jump. It's going to use jump on enter. Let's come up here. We're going to do another add state, jump. And we're going to give it an on enter, which is this dot jump on enter, the one we just made below. Okay, that's good. That's good. Now, what we need to do, let's save this, is not fully done on the jump, but it may work. Let's just see if walking works. So let me scroll press. Walking is not. Oh, right. Walking is not working because we start on the idle enter, on the idle state. We call idle enter. There's no idle update, so we do need that to know when to change to the walk state or the jump state, actually. Private idle on update. So if this cursor left is down or cursor.right is down. So if either left or right is down, right, we're pressing on either the left or right keys, we're going to want to go to the walk state. And there we go. And there we go. So that's using the state machine. You see down here in the logs, in the console logs here. Now we're at the idle state, right? Change from walk to idle. And if you watch down there, or you watch right here, yep, it's going to go from idle to walk when I move, right? Go idle to walk, walk to idle, idle to walk. So our states are working, and our character now is doing the logic only when it's in that state. Now we press jump, space, nothing happens, because we're in the idle state. Now if we're walking and we press, it does do that, but we never leave this state now. We never leave the jump state, so right, you can see from walk to jump. So now we're in the jump state, and we haven't left. Now we do need to leave that jump state, and we did it previously by checking when we hit something. Now we can still do that. Just take this, just so that we can move all our previous logic into this class for now. Come up here. This is going to be this dot sprite. Now when we on collide, we don't need this is touching ground, but if the state machine's current state is current state jump, if we're in the jump state and we touch something, we're going to say we are back in the idle state. So walk, jump, land, idle, and we can walk again. All right, so that's good. Now, what we still need to do is make sure that when we're in the idle state, that we can also jump. As right now, I can press space, and it's not going to do anything because in idle on update, we're only checking if the left or right is down. What we want to do is check if the space was just pressed. Basically, we do this. Now, we could also move this exact code into a method and call it in each of the updates. Let's jump. Let's walk, jump, walk, jump. So yeah, picks up that sliding on the wall, which we will fix later. So you'll see this is not totally perfect. If I jump and then I try to move, it doesn't, because in the jump, there's no update for me to move left or right. So let's say I wanted to do that. Let's see, jump on update. So there's another way to do this. You can use multiple state machines in here. We don't need to only use one. We can have two state machines. We could have a state machine that handles, movement, and then one that handles jumping, let's say. And then they can just both act on the penguin at the same time. But while we're just using one state machine, I'll just show you how we can also handle that here. We can take this right in the walk update and also move it into the jump update. And that will move it, and we don't need to switch the animation when we're jumping. We can maintain our, oops, that didn't do, oh, right. Okay, so we made this, but we didn't actually add it to our state machine's state setup here. On update, just jump on update. Jump, move, jump, move. Now, why is it changing animation? Let's see. We press jump, then we do one of these. We don't want this. Yeah, it's the problem with copy and pasting. You copy and paste too much, too little, and then things don't work how you intend. There we go. Now, first, do you want the penguin to just do nothing when it's moving in the jump? Maybe you have a different jump animation, but nonetheless. So there's the jump and movement in midair, and then walking and jumping. And there we go. So this is all with cursor keys and the space bar for our penguin here. All right, so that's this player controller. Let's just look it over. We added these animations to the sprite itself. So these are not global. You can't use it on other sprites. This is a Phaser 3.50 feature, a new feature in Phaser 3.50. We've made 3 states: idle, right here, idle, walk, and jump. Start and idle. We moved all of our player control code into the player controller class. Now go back onto our game scene. You'll see this is a much simpler scene class, where all it does is, we don't need this anymore. Deleting code is always great. That's good. But we have this scene class, and all it does is create our tile set, load our tile set, create our character, anything else we want to create from our tile map. It has no logic in here related to player movement. All of it is moved to the player controller, and that's using our StateMachine class to make this, make the logic of walking, jumping, being an idle more manageable. These are the 3 idles, the 3 states: idle, walk, enter, update, exit. We didn't use exit, but you could if you wanted to. And then same thing with jump, enter, update. If you want to do something on exit, let's say, I don't know, play a particle or just stop an animation, you could do that. We'll just demo it. Private walk on exit. And then when we do exit, we can do this dot sprite dot stop. I believe this is the stop. Yeah, it does the animation stop. Right? If you don't really need this, I'm just showing you. You could use a walk on exit here, right? The full shebang here on exit. This dot walk on exit, and it should still work exactly the same. Yep. But you can call different things on the update, on the exit phase, the exit hook here in our StateMachine. So you can see how powerful the StateMachine here is for character movement or character logic. In our StateMachine video, I don't think we covered anything this complex or this useful really, but this is what StateMachines are very useful for. So definitely check out the StateMachine in TypeScript video, then come back, watch this again to see how we added all this logic for the player in the StateMachine. And we got rid of that flag for is touching ground, right? This seems to make more sense. You are either going to be idle, walking, or jumping. You can't do all of them at the same time. And so this code only, each individual state only executes code for its state. Now you can also put this in a class of itself. They don't have to be in this player controller class either. We're just leaving it here for simplicity. You could add a state class and then just give our walk state here a walk state class that has all the logic in there, so that you can even make this class easier to read with less clutter of other things. You can put all the walk, all the idle, all the jump logic in one file, and then just add it to the StateMachine here like that. All right, so we hope you like this video. If you do hit like and subscribe for more videos on making games with Phaser 3.50. Now in the next video, we're gonna start adding some stars to collect. We're gonna put these stars in tiled using the object layer, much like we did for our player here in a few videos earlier. And then we're gonna show you how to collect some stars, show them in the UI, and we're gonna do some health pills to collect, because what is the game without getting hurt? And we will add that as well in a future video coming up. So like this video if you enjoyed the StateMachine, and subscribe for more videos on making games with Phaser 3.50.